Okay, we're now recording. So welcome to our East County Magazine election special results for 2020. And we've got some exciting results. I want to introduce our reporter, Kendra Sitton, who's going to lead off with those very important open congressional seats. Kendra.
Thank you, Miriam. So in the 53rd district, we had two Democrats running against each other. I'm going to start here because that race is already pretty clear about who is likely going to be the winner. That is filling Susan Davis's seat. She had held the seat for almost 20 years. She was a moderate Democrat, and both of the people who were vying to fill her seat are running to the left of her. First, we had Georgette Gomez, who is the city council president and the city council representative for District 9 in San Diego. Before holding office, she was an environmental justice organizer. So she came in very strong, a lot of good endorsements from the San Diego Democratic Party, as well as some further left politicians outside of San Diego, like Bernie Sanders, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and just a lot of local orgs backed her. However, she got a very strong challenge from Sarah Jacobs, the granddaughter of Qualcomm co-founder Irwin Jacobs. He initially put in a lot of money into her race, and she has been able to get a lot of followers. In this race, you definitely see the advantages and disadvantages of running with experience. So while certainly some people want a more experienced candidate to win, there was also different decisions that Gomez had made that people held against her. Specifically this summer, she voted in favor of a budget for San Diego City that didn't lower the police budget at all. It kept it completely the same and increased it a little bit, so the same proportion as other years. That was after activists had called in for hours trying to get the council to change the budget, but that didn't happen. So that was something that was held against her. So now we're looking at this race, and Jacobs is leading by a large margin. I don't necessarily see Gomez being able to get the 40,000 votes to beat her. So Jacobs ran on her experience in the State Department. So while she didn't hold office, she has worked in the federal government before.
Yeah,
so
she had that depth on the foreign policy. I know when I interviewed them both, she seemed to have a lot of foreign policy experience. Georgette, of course, had governing experience on the council, and a passion for the immigration issues and some other things. But go ahead.
Yes, so Jacobs was running on foreign policy. She was also a childhood anti-poverty advocate. The contrasting identity of the two women did come up a lot in the race. Georgette Gomez is queer. She's the daughter of immigrants. She grew up housing insecure. Obviously, Jacobs came from a very wealthy background, so that received a lot of scrutiny in this race. But again, Jacobs is leading very far ahead. Difficult to see Gomez making up that gap. They are both Democrats, so this is still a safely Democratic seat. Meanwhile, in the 50th, a very tight race shaping up. Currently, Democrat Ammar Campa-Najjar and Darrell Issa, former Representative Darrell Issa of a different district, are within 2,000 votes of each other in San Diego. However, there's still 50,000 potential voters in Riverside that we haven't heard from. Last time I checked, their website had not been updated. It is not as on top of things as San Diego. So that is surprising. This is the second time Ammar Campa-Najjar has run. He ran 2 years ago when Duncan Hunter was facing a scandal for misusing campaign funds, as well as several other things. And even then, with a blue wave that flipped the House to blue, even facing an opponent that was facing a major scandal, he still didn't quite win. It was very close, though. And remember, this is a conservative stronghold for 40 years. When Duncan Hunter's father, Duncan Hunter Sr., won it 40 years ago, it has not flipped blue since. So if Ammar Campa-Najjar won, that would be a major indicator of a blue wave throughout the House and some, support for Biden, backlash against Trump, helping people in local races. Obviously,
Yeah,
we still don't know. We won't know until November 20th when the last votes are counted.
yeah, and it's worth noting that while it's great for Ammar that he's up by a point right now, and it very well may hold, there's still quite a few votes to be counted. And of note, we only have the San Diego results right now. We do not have South Riverside County, Temecula, which although it's only a very tiny portion of the district, it is heavily conservative. So we may not know for a few days on this one yet. And I understand it looks like we're probably going to have Ammar join us a little bit later in the show. We reached out to both him and actually to Darrell Issa. And we're also going to have in a moment, actually, I think I'd like to welcome in just a moment Bonnie Price, who is with the East County Democratic Club in a few minutes, and she'll be with us to sort of talk about what this means for the Democratic Party if this holds. And again, it's very, tenuous right now, but he's certainly off to a strong start. Do you have anything else on that race, Kendra, before we move on?
I was just going to note that Ammar Campa-Najjar, he ran a much more moderate race compared to 2 years ago. As a moderate Democrat, he did a lot of outreach to right-wing supporters. 2 years ago, he's running more as a progressive. Several things he said lately have put him more in the moderate camp. He also didn't say for a while whether he would even vote Biden, although he did end up showing his ballot that he voted Biden.
Yeah, he drew some controversy from that for doing things like going on and doing an interview with the Defend East County, folks and some of that. But it looks like, the strategy of being kind of a, pro-gun Democrat in a deeply red area may have worked for him. So it kind of remains to be seen.
Yeah.
We don't know how much of it may be the Biden coattails in this region in the presidential race, but certainly I've been covering this district for decades out here, and it really has changed. We're seeing the demographics. It's certainly not as deeply red as it used to be. We used to see, the hunters win with, 20-point spreads or more some years. So
and Darrell Issa certainly ran as a conservative Republican. He positioned himself as a favorite of Trump. He supported the border wall and many of Trump's initiatives. So if East County is not going as far for Trump as they did in 2016, that could be something that is affecting Issa's turnout as well. But again, it is still conservative. Riverside could really turn this race around for Issa.
Yeah, it could. Issa certainly has a lot of experience, although he's been chided by his opponent for not living in East County or not living in the district. Because of reapportionment, the district that he used to represent, the 50th congressional district that he's running to represent, there is actually about a 30% portion of that district that comes from his former district. So he does have some familiarity with it and some ties up in that north part of it, including the Temecula Riverside part that hasn't come in yet. So it's kind of a nail biter, I think, on this one for us all.
Yes, definitely. Definitely a nail biter.
Well, talk about nail biters. We've got another one going on in the supervisorial race, second supervisorial district. And I'm going to go to Henry Magala now with the latest update on that one.
Hey, Miriam, thank you so much. Kendra, thanks. That was really good. You kind of upped the ante for me for doing my next report. But this is an exciting one. This is very close. I've been following this race all evening, updating from the county site every few minutes, and it doesn't seem to change. It's virtually a tie with the tie leaning to Mayor Steve Voss. It's 51% to 49%. So it's still, I think, too close to call which way it's going. But like I mentioned, it's a little bit leaning to Steve Voss. This is for District County Seat 2. They're running to fill Diane Jacobs' position, who's termed out on her term limits. District 2 is currently the largest of the county's 5 districts. It starts from the Mexican border and goes pretty far north into the county, although the county is about ready to redraw those districting lines to make them all a little bit more equitable. Just a little bit of background on what the supervisors do. I'm not sure what the audience knows. They control a $5 billion budget 4 billion of that, 80% of that is to implement required state and federal programs, but 20% of that, $1 billion of that, is to implement their own individual priorities. So and that $1 billion comes from resident property taxes. So it's important for the voters to know what their supervisors are doing, because they control a lot of funds. It can have a lot of impact on the community.
Right. And of course, Joel Anderson is the other candidate in the race. Joel was a state senator, assemblyman before that, water district out here, Padre Dam before that. And he's a very well connected Republican, very conservative Republican. Can you tell us a little bit? Obviously, Diane Jacob has been on there for 25 years. She's practically an institution out here, very popular politician. It's been said she was the most popular politician in East County. She did endorse Mayor Voss, Poway Mayor Voss, and Anderson was endorsed by the Republican Party. They're both Republicans. There's no Democrat in this race. But Henry, could you tell us a little bit of what's at stake, what a couple of the most important issues are that seem to be on the minds of the voters? I know you helped us out on the candidate forum with the transcript and so forth. So what are some of the key things to watch for there, if whichever one wins?
Well, thank you. I was going to mention both of the candidates running for this position are longtime public servants, and I think the closeness of the race reflects people's acknowledgement, awareness, and respect for both of them. Like I mentioned, Steve Voss is the mayor of Poway. He chairs the San Diego Association of Governments, SANDAG. Joel Anderson has been in the state Senate and state assembly for over a decade and has been a public servant dedicated to San Diego County. In the interview, he mentioned he's been living in East County for 40 years. So both of them are well known to the voters and are both committed to public service. I think the issues that the county supervisors are dealing with are all the major issues that the city and the county are dealing with. Everything from homelessness to the environment, pandemic response. They're going to be involved in that, especially for the rural areas in East County, is wildfire prevention and response.
Yeah, that's huge.
An issue.
Development is another very big issue.
Housing development's another one.
Yeah, are a lot of the open lands that we have across East County, and are we going to see, big housing developments go in there, or, what some people would characterize as sprawl, and how protected will we be from fire? So those are really, really major issues, and it's going to be interesting to see. I would actually like to go to Bonnie Price now. Bonnie is with the East.
I'm sorry, Miriam, that's okay. I don't know if you know, but Ammar Campa-Najjar is in our waiting room ready to be on.
Let's go with Ammar right now. Thank you very much. He's joining the meeting here. Ammar, welcome.
He might be running 2 minutes late.
Okay.
I think they were getting the computer ready before.
Okay, we can
they were
see him.
ready.
We can't.
So maybe we should go to Bonnie after.
Bonnie,
all.
while we're waiting, why don't you tell us a little bit about what this means, and what did it take to go from the hunters dominating East County forever to now having, it looks like a good potential that the next congressman may be a Democrat, Ammar Campa-Najjar.
Well, hands down, Ammar Campa-Najjar is a better candidate, and I guess you wouldn't think I'd say anything else, but he truly is. He has worked to get himself elected to represent the people for 4 years. They have not had, in the 50th district, any real representation for 40 years. Even though people kept electing the hunters, they kept ignoring the real needs of the people to have housing and good paying jobs, and also in the fire prone areas, some relief from some of the residual effects of fires. And I'm sure Ammar Campa-Najjar has met nearly every voter in the district. He is relentless in his effort to find out what people think.
Yeah, we saw him out there during the Valley Fire when he was evacuated from his own house out there, helping people, lifting hay and evacuating and doing all kinds of things. So it was
Yeah.
pretty-
And it looks like he's here with us now.
And he is.
Um,
So Ammar, if you can go ahead and unmute yourself, we want to welcome you
Yes,
to the show.
thank you all. Thank you
And-
all. We're still counting the votes, but it's looking good so far. And I want to say thank you to everybody, Bonnie and everybody who's really lifted us up over the years. People who've been fighting for this district for a very long time. And
Yeah.
we're going to keep fighting, and we're going to transcend the partisanship is what it looks like. And by putting people first and actually being there in the community like you were outlining, Miriam.
Yeah, I was going to ask. I'm sure every candidate that ever ran out here want to know what's your secret sauce recipe there, Ammar, for beating the odds, at least so far, if this result holds, and breaking through that partisan barrier. Obviously, it's a heavily Republican district still, with about a lot of decline to state voters as well. What is the secret, do you think, to you being able to reach across the aisle and bring in a lot of those voters?
Sometimes the answer's in the question, Miriam. But really trying to transcend the partisanship and meet people where they are, put country before party, people before politics, sometimes with the chagrin of hardline party members who think that I should take a certain route. I'm an East County son, and I understand our community, I understand our culture. I definitely think that we all want to grow always, but I didn't try to change people. I tried to meet them where they are and address the needs they have, whether it's getting through this pandemic or the economic crisis or the wildfire problems, things that as you pointed out, I've dealt with personally. And when a small business shuts down, I know the people who ran it. When someone loses their job in my community, in my small neighborhood, I know who they are. When someone tells me they had to evacuate because of a fire, I know that all too well. And when someone tells me they lost a loved one to COVID-19, I lost my uncle Ruben to COVID-19 3 months ago. So I know that pain.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
And I know what it takes to fight for us. I'm not a quitter, I'm a fighter. And my opponent is quite the opposite. He's changed positions as he's changed districts. And I've always been consistent on my belief of putting this district first, trying to listen, to learn, and then have the opportunity to lead. And that's why I think you're seeing the numbers you're seeing right now.
So a couple of quick questions. If you're the next congressman, what committees are you hoping to serve on back there, Ammar?
Labor and education is one of my priorities because I think education is a great equalizer. I want to bring back, good jobs to our community. You've heard this, Miriam, for a long time. And then I also want to work on commerce and energy and make sure that we're a hub of innovation here in the 50th and create jobs as well. And then probably Veterans Affairs, because we are home to 300,000 veterans in our county, and we're one of the biggest military installations in the country too, San Diego. And that disparity between the investments we make in our military versus taking care of our veterans once they've served our country, I want to fix that disparity and make sure we take care of our veterans as well.
Very good. And do you have a top legislative priority in terms of any bills you're eyeing introducing once you get back to Congress, if you win?
Well, one of my first priorities is making sure that we build back better from this pandemic, that we restore manufacturing that allows us in a pinch, whether it's an extreme event like terrorism or a pandemic, God forbid we have one, we have the manufacturing capability that we had in World War II to produce the ventilators and everything else that we needed that we couldn't do in a timely fashion, bringing back the backbone of our country, trying to help invest in the caregiving industry, whether it's for the young or the elderly or those with disabilities. I think we're going to see a major shift in the service industry, whether it's retail or fast food services, because of automation. And so how do we make sure those people who are working in service jobs still have good jobs? And I think the answer is in caregiving. So that's going to be part of what I work on in the very beginning, is bringing back those jobs, making sure they're built to last and we don't lose them because of globalization or automation. And then making sure we protect our planet from the worst calamities of climate change, because that's going to be something that we need to be very, very focused on, especially right now. I mean, we've had the hottest days on record in East County this year. And I think that we have to do something about that. So working on climate change, working on jobs, and government reform. Honestly, I want to work on term limits. I know some Democrats don't like that idea, but I think that our founders never envisioned people being in Congress for decades. Even Washington himself self-imposed a term limit when he could have been president for life. And I think it's healthy for our democracy to have a change of the guard And I think voters believe that. That's why they're giving me a chance over Darrell Issa, who's been there for 18 years.
Very good. Well, good luck. As we say, there's still a lot of votes to be counted, but it's looking very good for you. And we want to thank you for coming on and taking the time on this exciting night to join us, Ammar.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Take care.
Next up, we're going to go to our reporter, Mike Allen, out in Santee, and we've got some very interesting results going on in Santee. Mike, what have you got for us there on let's start with the mayoral and the council races.
Okay, Miriam. Yes, in the earliest returns that we have, John Minto, who has been the mayor for one term, is beating his challenger, Councilman Stephen Houlihan, by a 51.4% to 48.6%. Very close race.
Squeaker, yeah.
Yeah, it's very close. Minto is a pro-development, and he voted for Fanita Ranch. That's the key project that a lot of people in Santee are either for it or against it. And Stephen Houlihan is the only councilman who voted against Fanita Ranch. That was a 4-to-1 vote. And subsequently, that has been challenged by Preserve Wild Sea. They collected about 6,300 signatures to challenge it. But that's something else. That's not being decided in this election.
Yeah, that'll be in the future. Now, Houlihan ran on a platform basically of being anti-Fanita Ranch because they fear it's going to cause traffic gridlock, get rid of the open spaces, thousands of homes out there, and also a fire hazard because when the council voted that through at the very last minute, they realized that extending a roadway there, Magnolia, to create a second fire evacuation route, as had been promised all along, would mean one of the council members that supported it lived too close and would have to recuse. So they took out the exit and approved it anyway without a new environmental impact report, which was very controversial. So Houlihan, is on the side of the anti-Fanita Ranch. Now you had another council member or council candidate running out.
There's two other council races in District 4. Now that's the district that Houlihan represents, but because he's running for mayor, he decided he can't run for 2 seats. So in any case, there's 2 challengers. Sam Hurst, a UCSD professor, is winning in the early returns 55% to Dustin Trotter, about 45%. So that's about a 500 vote spread. It's still early, but Trotter was defeated in 2016 by Houlihan. There was a 3-person race, and he came in third. In any case, Sam Hurst is a newcomer, but she's not that new. She grew up in East County, and she's a graduate of Helix High School. And Trotter he was born in East County, and he grew up here in Santee. So he's got a lot of connections, and he had a lot of endorsements, and he also had a lot of money backing him from development, particularly with the Homestead Corp, the developer of Fanita Ranch.
Yeah, and Sam, we should mention, is opposed to Fanita Ranch also. So she's with Houlihan on that. So she's ahead right now, and he's behind. That's very interesting. So it looks like there may be more than just development issues perhaps at play here. I'm thinking about all of the racial justice protests that have gone on and counter protests with the Defend East County. And it's worth noting that Mr. Trotter has been a self-proclaimed supporter of Defend East County, some say a co-founder of it. So I wonder if that is, if that may have been an issue out there as well. Perhaps
that may have played into it, may have had something to do with it. There was a couple of nights of altercations and a lot of nasty times that were taking place here soon after the La Mesa riot.
Right.
And so.
And Defend East County has been taken down by Facebook. Yeah. I was going to say the Defend East County website, I understand, has been taken down by Facebook. And of course, there'd been a number of complaints of, it's one of those things that started out sounding okay. Let's defend, businesses after the riot in La Mesa. But then there were a lot of racial taunts and racial remarks on their side, and even a lot of violence that occurred at some of these events, violent skirmishes, between their members and protesters, or people standing with them and the protesters. So perhaps that was on the mind of voters, and that this may be a sort of a vote, against that sort of thing.
Right.
Now, Santee also had 3 ballot propositions. Can you tell us about those and how they're faring?
Okay. Well, the biggest issue was Measure N, and that is a slow growth proposition that in the early returns is barely passing. And the yes is passing 52 to 40, almost 48%. And that initiative was brought by Houlihan and the Preserve Watt Santee director, Van Collinsworth, and they are trying to slow down the development and to make it conform to the city's general plan. And any project that is a higher density that doesn't conform to the general plan, that would have to go to a public vote. So that's barely passing right now. We'll see how that plays out. In the other 2 measures, they're both have to do with term limits. Measure Q and Measure R are both passing very handily by 66% approximately to 33%. So whatever happens, there's going to be one of these, whichever gets the highest vote total, that'll be the one that it will take effect. And
I was just going to ask that.
There's going to be term limits, either going to be 3 terms for any particular elected official, or the alternative that was put forward by more the pro-development people, that was 3 terms and 2 terms for mayor. So a total of 5 terms, potentially 20 years. So
wow.
Anyway, those 2 are passing.
Very, very interesting results. We'll have to keep an eye on that. A lot of close races going on out there in Santee. And Mike, lastly, do you have the results for us? I think we've probably got a pretty clear result shaping up there in the assembly race for the seat currently held by. Go ahead.
Randy Vopel, 71st Assembly District race. 2-term incumbent Randy Vopel is going for his 3rd term, and it looks like he'll probably win that handily. He's beating Liz Lavertu 55 to 45%.
Yeah, so he is the Republican. It is a heavily Republican area, still a 10-point margin. Have to keep an eye, but right now it does look like a pretty solid lead for him there.
Yes.
I've got the preliminary results now in the La Mesa City Council race, which is very interesting. La Mesa, of course, has been through an awful lot this year. Not only, pandemic and things that everybody else had, but they had, some racial unrest, protests against, police issues out there. And then they had the riot where buildings actually burned down. So a lot of things going on there. And anyway, the results here so far, Bonnie, you're going to probably like these from the Democratic Club there. Right now, the lead is being held by the 2 Democrats in the race, although they're nonpartisan races, but the Democratic Party endorsed Colin Parent and Jack Shue. Colin, of course, had some controversies over some of his development donations as well regarding a proposed homeless project. But it looks like he's squeaking it out. He's got 25.6% right now. Jack Shue has 25.2. Jack has been sort of the mover and shaker behind getting La Mesa a Citizens Police Oversight Commission and a Citizens Homeless Commission. So a lot of changes going on there in La Mesa. Of course, it's not over till it's over. The big upset would be, it appears right now that Christina Licio may lose her seat. She was a Republican. She switched to an independent. So she's been kind of the independent voice on the council. But right now she's at 22%. Laura Lothian, the endorsed Republican, a realtor who's running on a pro-business platform, is at almost 17%. And then the other 2, Alan Durden, Mark Pappas, at about 6% and 3% apiece. But again, lots of votes still to be counted on that one. I would like to go to Brianna Gomez now for an update on some really major races out there in El Cajon. Brianna, tell us about
Good
District 2
evening.
and District 4. Go ahead.
Yes, good evening, Marianne. So District 2 was a very, very close election. We have Stephanie Harper right now as the lead with 20.78% of votes. The next lead was Michelle
So the
Metzel.
Democrat is actually in the lead on that one. Interesting.
That's correct. Yeah, and it's a fairly red area for District 2 and just El Cajon in general. So I think that might be a nice shift that some people have been looking forward to in East County. Again, we saw Ammar earlier, and so we're kind of seeing some shift from red to blue out here.
Yeah.
We also had, so Michelle Metzel had a 20.6%.
So they're really neck and neck at this point.
But, yeah, neck and neck. And Letitia Dickerson also with 20.15% of votes in so far. So Dickerson was a, female Black candidate. A lot of people also were, really wanting to see some diversity on the city council in El Cajon.
Mhm.
It was, nice to have her as a voice and face of diversity. She was also running with the Republican Party. But we're seeing a lot of, close votes here for District 2. Meanwhile, District 4, a little bit different. The incumbent Phil Ortiz.
Let's talk a little bit more about District 2 for a moment, because this is
Sure.
an open seat and there are 6 candidates in the race. This was a newly created district, majority minority district out there.
Yes.
And it's very interesting. The Republican Party actually didn't endorse anybody in this race. They withheld, although at least 3 of the candidates are Republican.
Yes.
Michelle is a very interesting one, the one that's almost tied with Stephanie. She was homeless at one time, and she's been a big advocate, for that, as is Stephanie.
As is Stephanie. Yes, Stephanie's main position was homelessness, as well as administrative waste and the safety of citizens in El Cajon. But she actually is a residential relief worker. So I think that some of her involvement in the community and previous job experience has led her to kind of lead right now.
Yeah, she's been active out there for a long time, comes to all the council meetings. And then the other ones, tell us just real briefly about the other 3 candidates in the race that are trailing right now, but who knows?
Right. So, yeah, this district was interesting because there were 6 candidates. So the other was Humbert Cabrera. And he was kind of the anticipated winner at one point. He had a lot of support behind him. But as we spoke
Planning
before,
commissioner, yeah.
Yeah, planning commissioner. There was some controversy about his position within the district and whether he was actually eligible to run for that position. So that might have taken its toll on his votes. We also have Juan Carlos Mercado, who actually was celebrating this evening in a viewing party with Estela Del Rios of District 4. So they had kind of a joint viewing party together. And then Martin von Dintenen, I believe is how you pronounce it. If somebody has a better pronunciation, let me know. And so those were the other candidates who are not leading at this time.
Yeah. And we should mention that, by the way, in District 3, Councilman Steve Goebel is running unopposed. So I think we're safe to declare him the winner in that race.
Yes, Goebel remained unchallenged.
Yeah. Tell us about District 4, which had actually 4 candidates on the ballot, one of whom, Billy Thigpen, dropped out and endorsed Estela Del Rios. But what are the results showing in that race?
The results are showing a preponderance of voters for Phil Ortiz, the incumbent. Ortiz also ran on the platform of homelessness. He is from East County. He has a family of 4, an infant and a toddler. So he said he was going to be spending his election viewing night at home with his family. He's a graduate of SDSU. The fact that he's already kind of been in the position, I think that voters are very familiar with him.
Yeah, that power of the incumbency.
And he has the endorsement of the Republican Party. He was running against Estela de los Rios, who is also had the endorsement of the Democratic Party for that position, as well as several other endorsements from the community. She's also a very well-known community activist.
And a well-known Latinx community activist as well.
Yes, very, very active in the Latinx community. And Dunya Shaba was the 3rd candidate. Shaba is the only Middle Eastern candidate right now in her district, as well as the council race currently. And so that was also something that many voters in that area were positive about. But Phil Ortiz also, he was for public safety, homelessness, supporting financial stability. He's a small business owner, so you have that kind of entrepreneurial background. And he was on the board of the East County Chamber of Commerce, and right now he has 46.15% of votes.
Yeah, so he's got almost half in a race with 4 candidates. So I would say he's got a pretty strong lead. The next one, Estela de los Rios, who is endorsed by the Democrats, has about 24%. So
Yeah.
a lot to make up, but who knows? There's still votes to be counted. So we'll be keeping a close eye on that race as well. Let's see, Lemon Grove. We haven't talked about Lemon Grove yet. Let me pull that one up here. Lemon Grove is very interesting. It looks like Mayor Raquel Vasquez maybe cruising to re-election there. She was the first Black mayor in San Diego County, a Democrat, and right now she's got over 40% of the vote in a 4-man race. Jerry Jones who's Councilman Jones, is at 33%. Kamal Martin, the challenger, is 18%, and Chris Williams at 8%. So it looks like it's coming down to a horse race between Mayor Vasquez and Jerry Jones in that one. Budget, of course, is the burning issue in Lemon Grove. It's a small city. They've had not enough revenues, and there's been talk about the potential that they can't turn it around. They could be even looking at disincorporation. So that's been a big thing. And I think the good news is that both of those top tier candidates have said that they oppose disincorporation. So we'll just have to see, what happens on that. On the city council, it looks like Councilman, here again, we've got George Gastel in the lead and Liana LeBaron. I believe, Bonnie, am I right? Are 3 of the 4 candidates running here Democrats? Only Teresa Rosiak is not. Is that correct? David Arambula, George Gastel, and I wasn't sure about Liana. Pardon?
David Arambula is a current city council member.
Right.
George Gastel was a city council member. He's running again. And I don't believe we have any other Democrats.
Okay, so maybe I was wrong. Liana LeBaron may not be then. And our reporter that was going to cover Lemon Grove for us had something come up. So I'm kind of pinch hitting on this one a little bit. Anyway, it looks like Councilman Gastel, former Councilman Gastel, may be getting the seat back again. He's got about 28%. Liana LeBaron, who is a planning commissioner out there, is at 26%. Councilman Arambula at about 23.5%, and Teresa Rosiak at about 22%. So that one I would say is definitely still too close with a spread of between 28 and 22 points between all 4 of them. I think that could go anyway right now. Councilman Arambula did have some controversies there over an alleged assault charge that's working its way through the court. But he's also very experienced, and he serves on a lot of the boards and commissions around town, and it has respect for a lot of the work that he's done there. So we're going to have to just keep an eye, I think, and see what happens in Lemon Grove. Moving on, let's go to Robin Kendall now, our education reporter. Robin, can you give us some highlights in some of the hot school board races in East County?
I think the most interesting thing that might happen in La Mesa is that the longtime board member and board president might be unseated.
Wow.
And that's a very highly respected Dr. Emma Turner. She's been on the board in La Mesa Spring Valley School District, now representing Area 4, which is in Bancroft School area. As I said, since 2006, she's been on the board, but there's a newcomer in town who's Sarah Riley, and she has a master's of business administration, international studies, and worked for a long time, and now is devoted to her children and education. And she's now 37% of the votes against Dr. Emma Turner's 32%. So we'll see what happens there. The other race that's of interest to us is, of course, El Cajon, where there are 2 seats that are up for election. And it looks likely that the incumbents will retain their seats, with Jim Miller, an attorney, having 65% of the votes in Area 5, and his challenger, Stacey Hoover, has 35%. A little bit closer, and I wouldn't want to make any predictions, is Area 4 of Cajon Valley. And the incumbent, Karen Clark Mejia, sorry if I'm not saying her name correctly.
Mejia.
Mejia, she has 52% of the votes, but a very interesting and highly educated Dr. Monica Hinton, a clinical psychologist and an African-American woman, she has 47% of the votes. So we'll
Wow.
see what happens there.
So that could flip. Yeah, it's been a district that's had quite a few controversies in it over some schools that weren't measuring up to the state standards, spending controversies, different things. They also were one of the first districts to reopen during the COVID pandemic, which was actually kind of popular with most of the parents, but not all of them. So a lot of issues, I think, for people to be considering in that district. There's a school bond measure on the ballot for that district as well. How is that doing?
I'll need to look that one up. I didn't look that one up yet.
Okay, I'll look those up while you tell us about what's happening with the Grossmont High School District. Do we have a result on that?
I think that's going to stay with the incumbent, who is a longtime educator and highly qualified individual. Elva Salinas has 56% of the vote, and the two challengers aren't, they're kind of battling out down there. Okay. So I predict that will stay with the incumbent.
Okay. And I do have the school bond results. Again, these are early, and so this could change, but right now they require all of them 55% to pass. So right now, Cajon Valley is not quite there. They're at just under 54%. Dehesa School District looks like theirs is sailing through at almost 64% right now. La Mesa Spring Valley's school bond is at almost 64% of the vote. And I think that was it for our East County school districts.
Can we say something about the College Board?
Oh, please, Bonnie, go ahead.
I'm very proud to say that Julie Shore is going to carry District 3, the Grossmont Cuyamaca Community College District, with 76% of the votes. And Elba Adams, who is an incumbent, will probably retain her seat. She has currently 59% of the vote, and she's a very red district. But when these two women are elected, the board will be totally Democratic. And all of them are educators. And I want to note also that the Democratic registration is the majority in Lemon Grove, La Mesa, Spring Valley, and El Cajon. So we are building our party, and we have many good candidates, 3 of which this time have their PhDs. And not all of the votes were available to look at, but one of our very best candidates for the Padre Dam Water District Board, I don't know what her votes are, but she's a PhD in water geography, and the Republicans tried to keep that off the ballot as a description of her work.
Very interesting. I do have the results on Padre Dam, preliminary again, but with 3 candidates in the race. It's Suzanne Till at over 49%, almost 50%. And then Augie Scalzi, I believe is the incumbent, is at 31%, and challenger James Sly at 19%. So it looks like there may be an upset brewing there. And then in the Helix Water District race, 2 seats up there, it looks like Dan McMillan, who I know is the Democrats' endorsed candidate, is at 77% over Douglas Sterling. So I think that looks like he's probably cruising to a win there. Joel Scalzitti, the Republican, it looks like, has beat out Vicky Knight Butcher, probably. It's about a 56 to 28% margin in that one right now. So I would like to go next to Penny, who's going to give us a little look at some of the statewide ballot measures and what's going on there. Thank you, Penny, for joining us.
Well, thank you. I'll just try to do the ones that seem more important, or do you want me to do all of them?
I think that just the most important ones, and then we'll be posting all the results later and tweeting them. I should mention people can follow East County Mag on East County Mag on Twitter, and then on eastcountymagazine.org we'll be posting, the full results of every race. If not tonight, then in the morning for some of them. So go ahead. What are some of the highlights?
So the stem cell one, Proposition 14, is a close vote. So right now it's 53% in favor.
Mm-hmm.
For 15, which gives funding for K-12 public schools, community colleges, and local governments by requiring that commercial and industrial real estate be taxed. And that is really a tight one. It's now 50.3% in favor of yes.
Okay. What about the tax? There's a couple of big tax measures and the Uber. Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, what?
Well, I was asking about, go ahead. Yeah, Prop 15 and 22, some of the other big ones there.
So 15 is the one that's closed. So 16, state cannot discriminate. Or so I thought it was important to, that's going to affirm affirmative action.
Right. It reinstates affirmative action essentially.
And it's a no right now. It's a
really?
No, which is very sad to see.
That is interesting in a year when we've had so many protests over racial injustices. That's rather surprising.
Well, it's still close. So it's 53.7% for no.
Yeah. Well, there's that backlash, I guess, against people that, that feel that we shouldn't be favoring or discriminating against, anybody.
Well,
so I guess that's the other side of the
coin. Whole thing of quotas, I think, is
they don't like the quotas.
Stated, but I think that quotas are not still popular as an idea.
Now there was a couple there was a property tax measure on there, I believe.
So, Proposition 19 allows homeowners over 55, disabled, or victims of natural disaster to have a property tax base with them when they sell their home. And that is winning. That's 52.6.
Interesting. Yeah. And the downside on that one, I guess, is that it can make you pay more if you're inheriting a home from a parent. So there's some pros and cons on that, depending, I guess, on where you stand. What about I believe it's Prop 22, that's the Uber Lyft one that is trying to kind of exempt themselves out of AB 5, Lorena Gonzalez's bill going after the gig economy.
It's a little bit stronger. 58.1 is going to pass it. So I guess the Uber drivers will get their way.
Well, it depends. I mean, it's kind of split. Some of them want the protections that they would get from that of being treated like an employee, and others want to stay as gig workers and, set their own schedules.
Well, but I think it means that Uber will move out of the state. That's actually, if they passes, Uber will leave.
Interesting. Or is it the other way around? I think, anyway, we'll get the details up on that. And
so I thought
Prop 22.
The kidney dialysis I thought was important, and that's a no.
Interesting. I want to let Martin Eder jump in here for a moment, who is with KNSJ. Martin, can you unmute so that we can hear you and see you? Are you still with us, Martin? Martin? Or Tim, we were looking to see if one of you has checked. We wanted to just check in on the national results and see if we have any updates on the presidential election and the balance of power in Congress that I know all of our East County readers, like everybody across the nation, are looking for.
So this is Tim Taylor also from KNSJ.
Mhm.
And what I've been following actually is the San Diego City elections. So I don't have the information up on the national, but I actually can bring it up. So what I'm
Yeah, and
seeing
Rebecca
now,
also, if
what
Rebecca.
I'm seeing now is that
Correct.
Biden has 215 electoral votes projected and Trump with 168. Now that's a little misleading because Trump is ahead in a number of the battleground states. He is ahead in Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, and Texas.
Oh.
So right now, it's looking like it's an uphill battle for Biden, the way I see it. Some of these races are not even that close. I guess the closest one might be Wisconsin and North Carolina. North Carolina, I guess, is the closest one where Biden could possibly pull ahead, but there's already 95% of the votes counted, and Trump has 50.1% to 48.7%.
Of course, we should throw in that there's still many votes to count in some of these races. So some of those may change, but we're certainly, I think, all watching with bated breath on that, and a lot of concern across the nation over
Yeah, a
this
lot of
rate
people have said that the late votes would break for Trump, that they represent people that voted today at the polls. But I think that really depends on the state, because in some states, they hold back the mail-in ballots. So it's definitely too early to count it, but it's definitely going to be very close. And what's interesting too is it's close even in the popular vote. Right now, it's close with Biden at 60.9 million and Trump at 59.6.
Yeah, I'm
So
looking at the New York
I am
Times.
prepared to talk about the city races if we have time. I know.
Yeah, we
getting
will.
close
And
to the
Rebecca
end of
and I
the
was looking
show.
at those too. I'll jump in real quick with just one thing, and that is right now it's neck and neck on the Senate, the US Senate, where according to the New York Times, at least it looks like so far, Democrats are leading in 45 Senate races and Republicans in 46. So there's a possibility Democrats could pick up the Senate, which would be an important check on the president's power if Trump were to pull it out and win re-election. But on the other hand, the House is very close, and it looks like right now there's slightly more Republican seats than Democratic seats, but obviously a lot of states, you know, where the votes are not fully in yet. And I think one or two of them, Alaska, Hawaii, where polls may not even have closed yet. I want to go to also Rebecca, who was doing a little research on some of the San Diego races as well. And maybe the two of you can together give us a bit of an update on some of those. Rebecca, can you maybe give us the results? And then Tim, if you have more perspective, you know, feel free to jump in.
Sure. Okay, yeah, I know that we're pushed for time, but we have two Democrats that are running for the mayoral seat. And currently, Todd Gloria is leading 57% over Barbara Bray. Also with the San Diego City Attorney, Mara Elliott has a 68.97% lead over Corey Briggs, 31.03. That's the early numbers. And then with these 5 races for the city council, we have District 1, Joe LaCavala with 61.87 leading over Will. And we have District 3, Steve Whitburn, who is leading over Tony Darrell. I hope I'm pronouncing these names right. District 5, Raul Campillo, 58.56% leading. And then District 9 is a weird one in that Calvin Barrio suspended his race, and yet he has 35.94%. That's hardly even close to Sean Elvio Rivera. However, Barrio has said that if he won, he would serve, but he suspended his campaign.
That's
And-
weird.
Isn't it weird?
Yeah, it is very strange. Tim, can you give us a little bit of perspective, especially on, I guess, the mayoral candidates, about what it may mean for San Diego if this lead holds in that race, or a little bit about the candidates on that one? Tim, are you still there?
He's muted.
Tim, can you unmute yourself, please?
Yes, of course, both the mayoral candidates are Democrats. So on a number of policy issues, they align. I think some of the differences are Barbara Bree is not a fan of vacation rentals, and Todd Gloria is more accommodating on that score. I think on housing issues, they both are concerned with affordable housing. I think when it comes to the city races, one of the things that's of interest to everybody, even people outside of the city of San Diego, is the balance of power. Right now, the Democrats, it's a nonpartisan office,
Sure.
of course, but the Democrats already have a majority. They're poised to perhaps have a sole one Republican, Chris Kate, left as a Republican representative on the city council if the current trends hold.
Okay. Well, we are running a tad short on time now. We're almost out. I did do one last quick check on looks like they've updated results a little bit here. And the race between Ammar Campa-Najjar and Darrell Issa has tightened a bit. Campa-Najjar is still holding on to his lead, but it's just by a whisker, 50.4%. Issa has 49.6%. And that's with about maybe 214,000 votes tallied so far total. And again, it's still a runaway for Sarah Jacobs over Georgia Gomez, 59 to 40%. So we're going to be keeping an eye on all of these races throughout the night. And does anybody else have any shifts in your races you've been following, or any new results that have come in, any last minute things that we want to tell our listeners here before we?
I do have Measure C, which would discard the current model of an at-large election for school board members. And it would be elected by district basis, and it's passing with an early 70% of the vote. And then also Measure D, which would give the school board a mechanism for removing trustees convicted of wrongdoing, and that is passing with the 87% of the yes vote.
Okay. And also we have some late news here on the city of Lemon Grove, the Measure J, which is the cannabis tax. And it looks like they're trying to solve that budget problem out there. It's passing by a whopping 74% right now. It's one of our biggest leads of the night. So I think on that note, I want to really thank everybody for joining us, and keep an eye on the results at eastcountymagazine.org. Thanks to all of you for joining us on the East County Magazine show on KNSJ.